It is no longer a question if we come to a Bitcoin world. It's a question of how fast we will get there, how violent or peaceful we will get there, and how will the way to that future will look like. You don't really own your home. You don't really own any stocks. You don't really own anything other than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the only thing that you can store in your head. The future monetary standard is a sound monetary standard. A Satoshi can be worth $1 billion. It won't be measured in that way, because if a Satoshi is $1 billion, nobody cares about the dollars anymore. And I'm looking at the history right now. I'm looking at the printing press, the steam engine, the electricity, the transistor, like all those historical examples, and see how did they change society and what impact Bitcoin will have onto our society. I had such an amazing conversation on the live stream with Momo, so I wanted to also put this episode out here and give it to all of you, because we talked about how hyper-Bitcoinization will actually unfold. We talked about historic examples of how we can think about what it means that we are going to a hyper-Bitcoinized world, to a Bitcoin standard. We talked about self-custody strategies. We talked about life in general. We talked about so many things. But the most important thing that we talked about is Bitcoin and how the Bitcoin standard will actually unfold. So enjoy.
I know that your background was in IT security. And what is your go-to answer when someone talks about quantum computers and Bitcoin?
There's two things. The first thing is, yes, we have to care for that. It's a threat that might be very valid in the future. So it's not something that we should just swipe away and say, oh, it will never be dangerous. It won't be anything that we don't care about. It might just be a threat to Bitcoin. So, and there are already solutions and proposals out there, and way smarter people to talk on that topic than I can ever be. And that gives me a lot of hope that we can actually move towards that, if that ever comes to be a threat. The second part is, if you talk to a lot of experts in the field, they all tell you it's not tomorrow. It's a threat that does not come right around the corner, but we have to be aware of that. And the big thing is with quantum computers is, why would they attack Bitcoin if there are so many other systems, like every other system, that's an easier target with more monetary value in them? The fiat system is way, way less secure than the Bitcoin system. Why? If I have a quantum computer that can break all the algorithms, can break all the things, why would I choose Bitcoin to break into if it's way more secure and way harder to crack than any bank account, any other system that I can just get probably more money out of in the total, because there's a lot more money in fiat still than in Bitcoin, a lot more. So why would I even attack Bitcoin in the first place? So there's also a game theory aspect to it. But at some point, Bitcoin will be bigger, and the target will be just way more attractive. So we have to already think about that. And there are great people. I think Bitcoin Mechanics is his name. I might confuse him with someone else, but I think he is really good on that topic. And there are like 3-4 other people that are really good and have good proposals and stuff like that are on the technical level just way better than me. I worked in IT security, but I worked on the economic side of IT security. So I was not a hardcore coder. I was not a hardcore developer of cryptographic stuff and things like that. But I did have some rudimentary understanding of software development because I learned that in school. But I'm not an IT security expert per se.
Yeah, and the comparison between Bitcoin and your central bank is that with Christine Lagarde and Jerome Powell, they would set the password with all their accesses, the name of their mistress or lover, plus the year of their birth with one special character. So that is way easier to crack, and even the cryptography there is much easier to crack. And there are so many people who have access to those data with a low security hygiene. But with your Bitcoin, ideally only you have access to it and not the whole network is compromised. And it is, as you said, it is going to happen in steps. It's a real threat. The algorithms are out there, and people might even smarter people might come up with even more efficient algorithms. We shouldn't just sleep on that, but it is not that we have left it, we are not thinking about it, and that there are not solutions for it.
Any time in history when there's a technology that is, like I say, a fork in the road of human civilization, like electricity was, like the printing press was, like all those great innovations were, there's a lot of resistance against that because it poses a big change to society. We all remember those memes where, or that actual thing that happens, but is now a meme in Bitcoin, the anti-electricity FUD. There were people saying, "Oh, electricity is bad. It will kill your kids. Electricity will microwave the whole world. Electricity is so bad." The same thing happened with all the other technological advancements. The internet was a big controversial stuff. It's still controversial. There are still people that say, "Oh, the internet is really bad. We should go back before the internet. We should go back out of electricity," which will never happen, by the way. But there's always a resistance coming up. And it's so funny to watch how something new has to be perfect. And the old incumbent system is not getting questioned at all. Nobody asks, "Hey, is my bank account quantum resistant?" Like, nobody asked that. Nobody asked, "Is my Amazon account resistance against that?" But we asked that with Bitcoin, with the most secure network there is in the whole world. There we ask it. Like, why do we do that? We should ask the insecure, the unsecure systems, the IT systems that there are already that have no security at all, are completely centralized, are controlled, as you said, with username and password somewhere, with two-factor authentication. And we all know from IT security, the biggest threat is not a technology threat. The biggest threat is the human being. Like, exactly. you can make a huge wall and make it really, really secure. But if the guard that holds the key to that wall just lets you in, it doesn't matter how big of a wall you build. And that's the thing where we should focus on. We should educate people on how to not fall for Bitcoin tricks and how to not, because that happens on probably an almost daily basis, that someone loses their Bitcoin, loses their money, loses other cryptos probably even, because they haven't been educated on scams. There are so many impersonators from me. There's so many impersonators from all the Bitcoiners out there that talk to the people every day, and they're still trying they're still managing to fund themselves with those scams. So I think we first should fix the social aspect of the IT security thing, and we should talk about how bad the security of Amazon, of Google, of the Fiat system is, and how great the security is on Bitcoin. And yes, we should be critical, and yes, we should be saying, hey, we should upgrade the code at some point to make it resistant. But this is not a discussion we have to have, that we have to do now. It's a discussion that the discussion is already happening, but it's not an action step that we have to take now. So this is the one thing. And the other thing, as I said, when such an invention comes and it gets questioned by the incumbent system, it's natural to do that. Electricity had gone through that, the internet had gone through that, and all the innovations have gone through that. But it's important to note that it's inevitable. Like you have electricity comes in, and the person that has electricity has an extreme advantage over the person that does not have electricity. It's the same thing with gunpowder. If you come to a fist fight with a gun, you win that fight because you can shoot the other people. They can be really muscular, they can be fast, they can be whatever they can be. You can just shoot them. The same thing can happen with electricity. If you are the only town in the whole country that has electricity, you will be the most prosperous town in the whole country. If you are the only town that sets on a Bitcoin standard, you will be the most prosperous town in the whole country. The same thing with all technology. You have to embrace it, or you will get left behind. And there's still places without electricity in this world. There's still places without internet in the world, and there are still places without the Bitcoin in the world. So we have a lot of education to do. We have a lot of building infrastructures to do. And we are on a good way to get there. But the resistance is normal. And those who buy into those resistance FUD that technology always gets, he will also get left behind.
Yeah, and there are so many more advanced techniques of scamming people that comes along. Right, the previous session on previous live, I was talking to Zia, and he was talking about the pig butchering scam. It's a new scam. Maybe you have already received messages on Telegram like that someone writes to you, instead of saying, "Hey, Robin," they say that, "Hey, Dave, I just arrived at the airport. Come pick me up," or something like that. And then, "Oh, I know it was a mistake." And they start to make a personal connection with you. And after some time, if you want a video call, they would even do the video call with you. Voice message, do you receive the voice message, so you are sure about the gender of the other person on the person on the other end of the line. And it might take 3 months for them to launch the attack, and then they don't attack you directly. They first say that, "Oh, there is this crypto on Coinbase, or you can make this account on Coinbase, transfer money like that," which is legit. Coinbase, with all the criticisms, it works, and it's not a scam for that person, at least, and that is beneficial to that person. But then they will introduce a website to you that is their own, and it is a total scam. So they are a kind of low time preference generation of scammers that are coming in, and we need to be really careful about them, especially with the rise of AI. They might even not need a person on the other end, and they would use voice changers or image producers to give you the illusion that you are talking to a human.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never got that one. I always get job offers on Telegram.
Job off. Oh yeah, job offers. I think LinkedIn is to blame for that.
Yeah, it's so annoying. You get so many messages. I got the scam that Larry Lepar fell for, and I think even Lynn Alden also. I'm not sure. The one where you get invited to an interview of Bloomberg or something like that, and then you open like Google Calendar, and then there's some weird scam going on where you give the rights to the tool, and it's really nicely done actually from Twitter, and then you can tweet in your name. I got that, I think, already like 7 times, but yeah, I saw it because I saw it before Larry. I don't know if I would have fallen for it because it was really sketchy and very different to all other interview invites, but especially if you're such a busy person like Larry Lepar and you just go quickly through messages, you can fall for that very easily, very, very easily and quickly also. So the scams are getting good. They know who to target and they know how to target them. And yeah, be aware of anything going on, and before clicking on a link, like just double check it, or use some sandbox, or after you click a link, see what you actually agreeing on because it was not the scam with Larry. So from what I've seen is they clicked on a link and there nothing was wrong. Then an app that was seemingly Google Calendar wanted to have access to Twitter, but it was not the actual Google Calendar. It just looked really good like Google Calendar. And then you click on it, and then you gave their application the right to post on your Twitter. So Larry's Twitter did not get hacked. He granted the attackers access to post on their Twitter. And then they posted a lot of weird things. Then Larry got banned from Twitter because Twitter was like, oh, like, what is he posting? So the whole story. But I think it should teach us that we should be really careful of social engineering. That's the most IT security things would be solved if we would eliminate social engineering. If social engineering is zero, like nobody would fall for those things, which will never be accomplished. But if it would be to zero, IT security would be so easy. That's why there are so many courses, so many offerings out there to defend yourself against social engineering, because they are just so good and they reach the right people. And it's a numbers game, you know, like you can write like 500 people with one scam, or maybe like 5,000 people, and you only need, let's say, 10 to fall for it. You don't need, most people don't fall for it. Most people actually are clever and don't fall for it, or are aware in that situation and don't fall for it. But those 5% or 2% that fall for it, it's already a profit. They already make the money back. So that's why they are so successful, because they don't need a lot of people to fall for it.
Yeah, definitely. And with respect to Bitcoin, when I came into Bitcoin, one of the strangest things that I had to come into terms with was that there are 12 words on one line. And those 12 words were the key to recover my Bitcoin. And I think I on purpose removed my Bitcoin wallet, and I restored it from that. It was Electrum wallet, my first wallet. To just see how those 12 words work, because I was very much used to having a username and password, and the fact that I hadn't made a username and password on Electrum's website, I was like, wow, where is my Bitcoin? So that was one of the strangest things that I had to deal with from the start, and it made more and more sense to me over time. Of course, there are still aspects of it that I don't understand, aspects of mining that I do not understand. What were the strangest things in Bitcoin when you encountered it for you?
Self-custody was completely new to me. I never was able with anything where I can put my financial energy and actually have it myself. Before I had stockbrokers, I had a bank account, I had all those other things. And there are things like real estate. A lot of people say, oh, like I can own my real estate. No, you own a paper that says that you are allowed to live there or rent it out and stuff like that. But it can be taken away from you really easily. There has to be just one judge saying, oh, it's not your home anymore. And if you don't agree, there's policemen coming to your house and get you out there. So you don't really own your home. You don't really own any stocks. You don't really own anything other than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the only thing that you can store in your head, and they cannot even get it out by force. They cannot shoot it out of you. If they could torture you, but it's still your choice if you give it to them or not. And this concept was so far away from me, so foreign to me, that it was really hard for me to grab how big of an invention this is for mankind. What will that change if all of a sudden there's no central authority over finances, over money? You immediately think about war. You immediately think about breaking in and stealing things. You immediately think about all those things, because all of a sudden the responsibility is not at a centralized authority. like a bank or a government. The responsibility is at the individual level. You remove the responsibility you move the responsibility basically down from the government, from the big banks, from the institutions, down to the individual level. And really interesting, if that concept is so popular, if that comes through all of the internet, if it's not just money, because right now it's just money where we have that possibility. Yes, you can say with social media, we also have Nostro now, but most people are not yet on Nostro. I mean, you can also make that argument with Bitcoin, but we really need that concept to go through all of society, to take the responsibility back from the big institutions towards the individual. This will be an awesome future. I'm not sure if it happens. I'm sure with Bitcoin that it happens. I'm not sure if the rest of the internet is so passionate about self-custody that they will actually adopt it, even though it might mean it's not as convenient as a centralized thing. If we get a self-custodial social media app that's more convenient and has a better network effect than the centralized ones, then it wins. I'm not sure if that's the case, because with Bitcoin we have a financial incentive to adopt it. If there wouldn't be number go up technology, Bitcoin industry would be like 1/100th of the size. Like if Bitcoin only would make transactions secure across borders without the number go up technology, almost everyone wouldn't be here. I would never came to Bitcoin. I probably would still not be in Bitcoin. There's people that would be in Bitcoin still, also for that. But the number go up technology, the inflation hedge, this is the one thing that gets people in. So we have to figure out how we can have a big enough incentive for social media apps, for all the data apps, for all the other things, to have a big enough incentive for people to take their control from the institutions down to the individual level. I'm not sure this exists. I'm not sure we come to that future. I'm sure we come to that future in Bitcoin and with money, because the incentives are correct. The game theory is playing out. And that concept was completely new for me, and I'm still fascinated by it. I'm still fascinated by Nostro also. I'm still fascinated by what implication does that have for society when all of a sudden you have a key and you can lock that key in your brain and nobody can take it away from you. Like, how crazy is that we have that now, and what implications does that have on society long term? So that was probably the biggest thing that I had to wrap my head around it. Of course, there were technical challenges, but I jumped over them. There were other things that I had to tackle. For example, I thought inflation is good for society. I really thought like inflation is good to prosper small companies and stuff like that. I couldn't be further away from the truth there. So I had to jump over that hoop and realize that the natural state of the economy is deflationary, and inflation means that we are manipulating nature. And this is the bad thing. So that was another big hoop. And that's probably the two big things that I really had to get. Why is it good that we have deflation? And how crazy it is that we have the possibility to take your own money in your own hands and nobody can F with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And someone who opened my mind to it was the great Jeff Booth. He explained it in very comprehensible terms. I listened to him first on who is that guy? I don't remember his name. He had a series and he has interviewed Seyr too, and he's very famous. Do Do you by any chance?
Robert Breedlove?
Yes, Robert Breedlove. Yeah. I listened to his series on Robert Breedlove.
I can read your mind.
yeah, you read it better than me. The name wasn't there, the face was there, but you read it. Yeah, so he really opened mind to that, and I think I have already said that to you too, that the guy who killed the last leftist cells in my body was Jeff Booth. So it made me a full free market believer. And one of the interesting things is that even if you consider that everyone is on a Bitcoin standard and it has 100% adoption, that's a direction that I would like to go. There are so many directions I can take from what you just explained, but let's go this way. Even if everyone accepts Bitcoin, there is still room for Bitcoin to grow. Why? Because you cannot increase the amount of Bitcoin, and over time, human productivity increases. Entrepreneurs find more productive ways to do things that used to require so much resources and energy and material, and they are doing it at a lower cost with a higher efficiency. So the cost will go down over time. So if something costs you 1 Satoshi on a 100% Bitcoin standard, it's going to cost you 1.5 Satoshi 1 year later because of thanks to new innovations. So Bitcoin increasing in value is not just a function of increase in the number of people that use it. It is going to be true for a long time because we are now at 2%, 4% adoption. Maybe when what we call adoption is even Bitcoin on exchanges, which I don't call adoption. We are still in the beginning of the way, but there's a long way to go. And even in that day, we are going to have deflation rather than inflation. And nobody can open your eyes to that idea better than Jeff Booth. And I'm thinking of bringing him on, hopefully. About Bitcoin, hyper-Bitcoinization, what are your thoughts on that? When it's going to happen, or if it's going to ever happen?
It's out of question that it will happen. The cat is out of the bag. So it is no longer a question if we come to a Bitcoin world. It's a question of how fast we will get there, how violent or peaceful we will get there, and how will the way to that future will look like. There's no question in mind that the future monetary standard is a sound monetary standard. There's absolutely no question in my mind for that. And there's also no question that I think the real adoption of Bitcoin is not at 2, 3, 4, 5%. It's probably under 1%. Because those people who now have Bitcoin, only a handful of those actually live on a Bitcoin standard. A lot of people counted in the 3, 4, 5% adoption, they have 1,000 euros, maybe 5,000 euros on Coinbase. And they have a 100,000 euro portfolio somewhere else. That they didn't adopt Bitcoin standard. They are diversifying their portfolio a little bit. So I wouldn't count them in the statistics of they adopted a Bitcoin standard. If we raise the standard of what it is that it is that you have a Bitcoin standard, I think we are way down and we have like 0.1, 0.5% adoption, something ridiculously low. If you asked, if you go about and say and you interview the whole world, let's say you interview the whole world and you ask everyone a set of questions. And first everyone stands up and everyone is standing and you ask the question, please sit down if you have some exposure to Bitcoin. 97% of the room would sit down because we are at around 3% adoption, let's say. Then if you ask the question, okay, who holds their own keys? Another 97% of that 3% is sitting down. Absolutely. Then you ask the question, who has more than 80%, let's say more conservative, who has more than 50% of their net worth, of their liquid net worth in Bitcoin? So not counting your own home, not counting anything else, like just your liquid net worth. Like another 50% are sitting down. So that's what I mean with we are at under 1% adoption. I'm quite sure about that. What does this mean then? What does this mean if you're sure about that we are under 1% adoption and you're sure about that we reach a sound money standard? This means we probably have a 200x from here, what Bitcoin can do. This means that we are so freaking early that if you tell this to people that are not Bitcoiners, they think you're crazy. And it's the crazy ones that change the world. I think Steve Jobs said that once. It's the crazy ones that think so far ahead and think about so crazy ideas that other people don't even want to listen to you because it's so far-fetched. So I'm also recommending, if you talk to people outside of Bitcoin, don't tell them that Bitcoin will 200x, because they will see the $100,000 price and they're like, okay, let's 2x that. That is 200,000. Let's put a zero behind it. That's 2 million. Let's put another zero behind it. It's 20 million. No way Bitcoin is going to 20 million. Yes, it's going to 20 million. It's going to 50 million. It's going to 200 million, because the US dollar and the euro and all the rest of the fiat will at some point be worthless against Bitcoin. So we'll reach all the price points from 100,000 to infinity. Like everyone, like a Satoshi can be worth $1 billion. It won't be measured in that way, because if a Satoshi is $1 billion, nobody cares about the dollars anymore. So the point is, we are so early in that game. We are so early in the adoption that people have a hard time figuring out how this will change the world. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm 100% sure that we will get there. I'm 100% sure that it's the right move to be all in this community. And I'm just now figuring out how we will actually get to that future. And I'm looking at the history right now. I'm looking at the printing press, the steam engine, the electricity, the electronic telegraph, the transistor, the internet technology, like all those historical examples, and see how did they change society and what impact Bitcoin will have onto our society. If you look, for example, at something very easy, what is very easy to understand also, it was very, very easy also for me to understand when I first heard it, the printing press. It's also very famous, in my opinion, within Bitcoin. Before the printing press, most people couldn't read. Most people couldn't write. And those people who could controlled how information spread, because those were the only people that spreaded information. Then there were also people that read out loud on sessions. So they controlled also what's being said and what's being delivered. Then there were the church, and they basically had a monopoly on information. And this basically gave a very small group of people the control of how information is processed and how information goes to other people. And the interesting thing now is that it took a long while to make one book. So there is a person that has to sit down and write. Let's take the Bible, because that's what Johannes Gutenberg was his first project with the Bible. This Bible that he printed had 1,200 and something sides. 1,200 sides. You have to sit down and write it line by line, page by page. Imagine how long a human being needs to write one of those books. There are estimates around a few months, maybe a little bit over a year, how long one human being works on that book. Johannes Gutenberg, with his invention of the printing press, managed in the first 5 years of his invention to print 180 copies. In that same time frame, if he would just write the Bibles, he could maybe do like 5, probably more like 2, because you also have to write it very nicely. So you have to make a nice copy. So this already accelerated innovation a lot. But the more interesting thing is what happened over the next 50 years. Like, who cares about the first 5 years? It's just like small innovation. It's like sparkling a little bit. That's what we are seeing now with Bitcoin. But over the next 50 years, only in Europe, there were over 20 million books. We went from one book takes around a year to 20 million books in 50 years. And I don't even know how many books we are now producing on a daily basis, probably like 1 million per day or something like that, with all the ebooks and the small things. So, and this made people realize they have to read, they have to write. This enabled a lot of revolutions. This enabled innovation. This enabled all sorts of other things. And then you come back to Bitcoin. What if we don't fix knowledge, like the printing press fixed knowledge? What if we fix money? What if we fix the most fundamental thing of our lives, the thing that we all use? There are people that never read a book. Like, there are people like that. But there are rarely people that never touched money. Like, most people have touched money in some sort of sense. If I would now, if let's say there are, let's say there's a full Austrian audience, like when we ask everyone in Austria, who here has touched money? Like, most of them would say, yeah, of course I touch money. Even if you live on the street, you probably have interacted with some sort of money at some point. So this is something that touches every human being on earth. And every human being on earth needs that. Like, every human being on earth needs Bitcoin. How gigantic that opportunity is and how gigantic the impact on society is really hard to grasp. And that's what I'm currently doing with my book. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What can we learn from the past, combining with the knowledge we have already on Bitcoin, and how this will impact society? Like, I've no clue. I've not come to a conclusion yet, but it's just that's what I'm really passionate about right now. And I forgot actually your initial question. I was going on for so long that I forgot what you were actually asking. But I hope I kind of answered it. Let's take a break for a moment and appreciate the beauty that Coin Vigilante has made with the Bitcoin watches. Those watches are the most amazing, the most elegant way of showing that you are a true Bitcoiner. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there, and of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. And now, if you have Bitcoin, I really do hope that you don't have it on exchange. But if you do have it on exchange, I have two ways for you to deal with that. The first way is you put it on a hardware wallet. That's the entry for you to get into the self-custody game. I recommend BitBox, Bitcoin only edition, for that. It's a super simple and secure way. And if you check out the link in the description, you even get 5% off if you use the code Robin. And the second way is the Bitcoin Way. The Bitcoin Way is your all-in partner in terms of how to get the most out of your sovereignty. They will personalize for you a self-custody setup that is perfect for your individual situation. They will show you how you can secure your own devices. Securing your Bitcoin is not enough. You also have to keep all your devices secure. One topic that is overlooked often is the inheritance plan. What happens with your Bitcoin once you are no longer here? Do you have a plan for that in place already? And last but not least, if if you're in jurisdictions where you don't feel safe, it's better to get a plan B. For all that, head over to thebitcoinway.com/Robin to get a 30-minute free call. And just a quick side note, I will be for the first time ever speaking at the Bitcoin Prague event in June. It will be absolutely legendary, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you there. You can get your ticket in the link down in the description of Bitcoin Prague, and very important, use code Robin to get 10% off your ticket. I'm really looking forward seeing you there.
Yeah, I was asking the future of Bitcoin, how it is going to be on hyper Bitcoinization. You said, yeah, actually it was totally answered with some extra points. And as a kind of quick digression, we are going to answer this question from our audience, Radar BTC. Maybe 80% of Bitcoin users will never hold their own keys, and that's fine. Even if they hold JP Morgan tokens 25% backed by on-chain verified BTC, that's good. What is your opinion on that? After this, we will continue our discussion about the future of Bitcoin.
I do think so, actually. I'm still a little bit, I'm not 100% sure on that topic, but I have a hard time thinking that everyone will hold their own keys and it will be natural, at least in the medium term. There might be a long-term future where, let's come back to the book example. The invention of the printing press forced people to learn how to read and write. And maybe, just maybe, Bitcoin forces people to take responsibility, to forces people to learn about public-private key management. That's my hopeful answer. That's my optimistic answer. But this will take a very long time, just as it did with the printing press. It was not within like, oh, we invented the printing press. 5 years later, everyone can read and write. No, still today, there are a lot of people on the earth that cannot read and write. Even in progressed societies, in developed societies, there are a lot of people that still cannot read and write. Even in Austria, and even in the Western society, there are still people that cannot read and write. But it is mainstream. Like, you can write, I can write, you can read, I can read, and most of the audience probably can read and write. So what we have actually come to know when we look at the history, inventions forces us to think and behave differently. And what if, for example, big companies all of a sudden discover self-custody? And I talked actually about that with Michael Seyr on my podcast. What if Apple encounters Bitcoin self-custody? What if Apple comes in and says, we want to be the hardware wallet providers for all of you because we think Bitcoin is the future. And all of a sudden, your iPhone is a key, your Apple Watch is a key, your MacBook is a key, your iPad is a key, your Siri device, this HomePod thing, is a key. And if you hold 3 of your, let's say, 6 Apple devices that you have together, you can sign a transaction offline. And the signing thing happens on the device, offline, right in a hardware wallet. Like, the treasure is built into the Apple iPhone. I don't know. I'm not predicting that this will happen. I'm just saying there's a lot of things that can happen. And the BitKey, for example, is a great example of how future self-custody could look like. That's very easy for everyone to use. Because yes, we know BitKey, if you're really fully self-sovereign and you want to get it in your own hands, I personally don't use a BitKey. You have different solutions. But this is a solution that I can give to my granddad. And he can figure out the phone, he can figure out the BitKey. And if he can figure out that, we probably come up with even easier things to do. And key management might be something very easy in the future, where you just have to choose how sovereign you want to go. So you have different solutions where Maybe an iPhone and your Apple Watch together is a key, and you need both of them additionally with your MacBook to have a 2 out of 3 multisig setup. And if you hold two together, you can sign a transaction. That's probably not the most secure, but it's a nice, easy solution, and it will be amazing in the Apple ecosystem. But then if you really want to be fully sovereign, you only use open source hardware and software where you can verify everything yourself. Everything is, oh gosh, how is that word called? Air-gapped. Everything is air-gapped, so you don't connect it to your online devices. You don't connect, like, you can go way more sovereign with it. But not everyone will be on the most sovereign end of the spectrum. Some will be at the Apple level. Some might even have a Bitcoin wallet and at the Bitcoin bank. There will be Bitcoin custodians that will be around. How big the percentage will be from how many people have their own keys versus how many people give someone else the keys to keep them will be determined by how necessary it is to keep your own keys, how much trust in this is in these institutions, but also it will be determined by how convenient is it to hold your own keys and what's the trade-off there. So I cannot tell you all the answers here, but this is how I think, big picture, how self-custody will scale in the future.
Yeah, and we already have solutions that optimize self-custody. For example, you can have something like Swan Bitcoin. I think they hold one key. Is it them or is it someone else? And then you hold 2 out of 3 signatures, so you always can sign if you lose one of your keys. It's not the end of the world. At 21st Capital, my friends work on the smart vault, where if you lose one of your keys after determined time, the number which is calculated in terms of the block time, you're going to have access to your Bitcoin with only one key. That's an interesting thing. So there are things that making it more kind of affordable and accessible to all kinds of people. So maybe there will be no necessity for people to even hold their Bitcoin on exchanges, as it is not now. Maybe people are just scared. I think that is one of the big reasons. I remember my friend Sina did a research. I have forgotten the details of that, but yeah. So one of the hindrances is that people are afraid of storing their own keys because they might mess up something. So when these concerns are addressed, then there is less incentive for people to not hold their keys. And here I am curious, without disclosing any of your private ways of self-custody, how your self-custody has evolved and what has become possible in your Bitcoin lifetime. For example, when I came into Bitcoin, there were light wallets such as Electrum. Electrum was my first Bitcoin wallet. I have this nostalgic love for it all the time, though these days I use Sparrow more on my system than Electrum. I always have Electrum installed somewhere, but mostly I use Sparrow. I use Blue Wallet. Mobile wallets were not to be trusted, were not much of a thing. I mean, you could install Electrum there, but maybe not the best idea. Things have changed a lot since then. Lightning wallets came, Taproot came in, Miniscripts came in since I've come to Bitcoin. And then from an Electrum wallet, whose seed phrases I wrote in my key pass, I just wrote it simply there. So it was just a matter of luck that I didn't get hacked with all the kinds of hacks that people see. So when we are talking about people getting hacked, we are not looking down on them. I have made all the mistakes under the sun. And sometimes I am talking of experience. And now I am relying on hardware wallets, the hardware wallets that you make yourself, flashing your own hardware wallet. One of the favorite guests that we talked on 21st Capital, and I'm looking forward to bring him on here, was the creator of Seed Signer. So I have created my own wallet just for fun. Of course, there are many scripts that I have played around with, and I want to know, without revealing your private key or your seed phrase or saying exactly where your keys are located or which setup you're using, could you tell us how it's evolved, or tell us something about that, and what do you think the future of the Bitcoin will be? And some part of it I can say I got from the previous description that you provided. So I want to see how your interaction with Bitcoin has evolved in terms of self-custody.
I stay a little bit general with that, and put also experience that I've seen from other Bitcoiners in there. The really interesting thing with Bitcoin is the moment you come into Bitcoin, you first have to discover self-custody at all. So you first have to see that there is something like self-custody. There is something like having your own keys. As I talked before, this was a big moment for me, where before I always trusted institutions. I just had a stock brokerage where I had my stocks, I had a bank where I had my money, and all that was fine. But then all of a sudden you come to know, like, oh, I can have my Bitcoin myself. So self-custody starts at the realization that you can self-custody your Bitcoin. Most Bitcoiners haven't come to that conclusion. If you do self-custody, you are ahead of 97% of all Bitcoiners already. Even if you have a shitty self-custody setup, you're already you're already in the top 3%. So in the top 3%, we have then the people that self-custody. And then at some point you go through attack vectors of like, oh, I have, maybe I'm just laying around here because they are a partner of mine, BitBox. You have one hardware key, and there you have all the things on. And then you go through the things of like, oh, but what if it breaks? Oh yeah, it might be good to have a metal seed backup. It might be good to have some backup of your hardware wallet. Yeah, but okay, I have this metal backup. I have it laying around at home. What if someone comes and looks at it or makes a picture? Like maybe a friend, or maybe, I don't know, some friend of someone else's friend, and he sees it on like, oh, like free Bitcoin right there. And she snaps a picture, puts the 12 words, 24 words in, let's say you said a blue wallet, and just snaps your Bitcoin out. So you have to protect against that also. Then what if my house burns down and everything is gone? Like even your metal, I know they are fire resistant and stuff like that, but maybe you don't find it. maybe you're living in an apartment building where everything crashes down. Good luck finding that one thing that survived in that fire under a huge thing. So what if that happens? Then you go all of a sudden in multi-signature and say like, okay, I could have a key at a bank. I could have a key at a friend's place. I could have a key at my parents' place. I could have a key at my daughter's place. I could have a key wherever I want to have my key. So then you're like, okay, what do I do? 2 out of 3, 3 out of 6, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, like that, like 10 out of 20. You can go crazy with it. I don't know if there's any limit actually with it. I never researched that, but there are a lot of possibilities that you can do. So then you come to the conclusion, okay, do I want to trust this person? Do I want to trust this person? What if they mess it up? What if I have a 3 out of 5 and I have, let's say, 2 keys at home, 1 key at the bank? If the bank loses it, and my people also mess it up. All of a sudden, I'm only having 2 keys, and I cannot control my Bitcoin anymore. So those people should also not work together against you. Then you have things like miniscripts now. I think 21st Capital is one of the first that actually does that and implements that, which makes keys available after a certain amount of time, which is an amazing invention. So what I want to say with that is there's a natural evolution. The more you learn about Bitcoin and the more money you get into Bitcoin with what setup you have. And maybe over time you have from single key to multi-key, from multi-key to multi-vendor setup. So you not only have one setup, you have multiple setups with multiple different vendors. Maybe you have a wallet with 21st Capital, maybe you have a wallet with Casa, maybe you have a wallet yourself where you do self-custody and multisig completely yourself without any vendors. Maybe you have it with some other service providers. So there are so many different options that you can go down that you could actually do, that it's only important that you look at what can happen to you and how can you secure yourself against that. How can you make sure that if someone, there's one thing that I've not discussed yet, the $5 ranch attack. What if someone actually knows about your Bitcoin, comes at your home and is threatening to torture you? Do you have something in place for that? Do you have something in place for whatever can happen to you? So you have to think about all the different attack vectors and how you can protect yourself against every single one of that. And with security, and you probably know that better than I do, with security, there's never a 100% secure system. There's always this one small possibility that can go wrong. But make that one small possibility so unlikely that it would be a headline story everywhere if it actually happens, so you can make money with that headline story.
Yeah, that was a good way of putting it, Connie. Yeah, and it is important to diversify when it comes to Bitcoin, but not diversify your money in real estate, some crypto, shitcoins, and also Bitcoin, but your Bitcoin in different setups. It's not necessary for everyone. You and I talk about Bitcoin. People know our name. So our situation is different from others. But if anyone wants to come after me, I lost all my Bitcoin in a boating accident. So you're not going to get anything. Every person, based on the amount of money they have and the situation they have, they require different self-custody solutions. One of our audience here said, we'll quickly read this comment. The forcing function for mass adoption might be that survival requires sovereignty. That's scary. I tend to agree with that. And what are your thoughts on that? So we can go to other question.
I love that. Man, that sentence hits hard. I never heard that sentence in that nicely. I might just put that sentence in my book somehow. That's really nice, because it shows, like, the first thing is, like, the forcing function of mass adoption might be that survival requires sovereignty. So this is not only of, like, okay, it's inevitable that we come to the Bitcoin future, but it also shows you have to be prepared to be in the Bitcoin future. Let's take it to an example that most people know about. Let's say the internet. The internet was something where a lot of people benefited a lot. Like, a few people, maybe not a lot, a few people benefited a lot from the internet. Most people benefited not that much from the internet, but everyone benefited somehow from the internet. So, like, all our lives are a little bit better because of the internet, I would say, because you can communicate now with friends across the sea and stuff like that. There are of course also very negative things with it. But we have to adopt and be as sovereign as possible with Bitcoin to be protected and to be as best equipped as possible in a new Bitcoin way. Because what if you have your Bitcoin on an exchange, they get hacked and you never get it back? Yeah, you got that Bitcoin is really good and you got that Bitcoin is going far, but you never got Bitcoin because you lost them. So like why did you learn about Bitcoin if you lose them? Like that does not make sense. So yeah, I love that sentence. I think I have to note that down and basically save it for later, because I think I have to think two more times around that sentence. It's really, it's a good one. I love that. Who was that? Cesar. Thank you so much for that.
Cesar, yeah. Cesar, thank you for that comment. And it might be Cesar based on the locality. And we should really practice sovereignty, and we should do it before it becomes absolutely necessary. We need to learn how to use Bitcoin before we have to use Bitcoin, because then we have to learn it in a rush. Maybe the demand raises for it so much that we cannot get enough, or we end up with a smaller amount. There was this thing that Future Paul once said, one of the Bitcoin developers. He said that he referred to this Arkansas Traveler's lyrics. I even wrote a long post on it on Nostr about it. That Arkansas Traveler is a kind of country music which has different versions of lyrics. One of them is this, that there's a traveler and he goes to a fiddler and they are at a place and the ceiling is leaking. There's a hole in it and it's raining, and it says that, well, it's raining and we should fix that. And he says that, well, it is raining, we cannot fix it right now, it's raining cats and dogs. And he says, okay, so some other day that it's not raining, why wouldn't you do that? And he said that it doesn't pour when it's not raining, so or it doesn't leak when it's not pouring. We shouldn't be just feel comfortable that everything is okay. The money in our bank account is not going to just go away, though these conditions are nullified for so many of us. Some people might not have gotten such wake-up calls, but we'd better be prepared when such things become normal, and our sovereignty requires us to know much more solutions.
I love that, yeah. And you have to prepare. That's also with self-custody. I think it's an important step. First, look at your self-custody setup and then imagine the value of it would be 10x. So let's say you have 80,000. Let's say you have one Bitcoin. This one Bitcoin is now not even 100K US dollar, but it's 10x from that. So it's almost like at $1 million. Would you still be comfortable with your self-custody setup if it Bitcoin 10x's tomorrow? And that's where a lot of people actually say like, oh, 10x's tomorrow? I might have to upgrade the one or two things at my self-custody setup, and being prepared for that is very important. And I talked with Rick, actually. He now joined the Bitcoin way, who lost 25 Bitcoin. You know about like Rick Messett, and he told me at the end of the podcast where I interviewed him around his loss of 25 Bitcoins. I interviewed him and he said, invest in proper Bitcoin self-custody before you get hilariously rich. Like make that investment a little bit before that. Obviously, if you have now 3,000 euros in Bitcoin, don't invest in a hardware setup that costs you like 2,000. that does not make sense. But if you have, let's say, 200,000 in Bitcoin, it does make a sense to invest 2,000 euros into self-custody setup that really works, and you can make it with partners, you can make it yourself, you can invest either in education or you can invest in a provider. So there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, and there's for everyone basically an offer out there, which is amazing to see that the Bitcoin self-custody space is already so big and diverse. So there's no excuses, and if you lose your Bitcoin, it's totally on you. Like I always have a big empathy for people that lose Bitcoin, but at the end of the day, it was their fault.
Yeah, and the more realistic people really accept this, no matter how difficult it is. We had Chicos on our show, who is an MMA fighter, jiu-jitsu fighter, and fitness instructor, and he lost nearly 1 Bitcoin, and his goal was to become a whole coiner. And he was very clear about the fact that I accept all the responsibility. My friend told me this. My friend told me that, and it is not. And we interviewed him not long after this has happened. For most people, it would take maybe a year or two to accept the responsibility, but he had hit that kind of maturity to say that, yeah, it was not Bitcoin's fault, it was my fault. It was not my friend's fault, it was my fault, and that's a huge realization. What is your responsibility, my responsibility, people who talk about Bitcoin, educate about Bitcoin, and Bitcoin developers? What do you think our role is in making the future be in the most peaceful way, and most people can benefit from Bitcoin this as soon as possible rather than later? What are our roles?
There are 3 things that are really important. The first thing is stay 100% true to yourself. Like never do anything that, like, always act as 100 million people are watching. Like, imagine your life as you would be on a 24/7 live stream with 100 million people watching you right now. For a lot of people, that would be frightening. Most people would fall under the pressure, but it just like gives you the feeling of, if I do that, is that actually an honorable and integer step that I could take? This is just on like, stay true to yourself and stay true to your mission. The second thing is, if you're an educator in this space, you have the responsibility to educate yourself. You can only educate what you learned before. You can only be as smart as your smartest thought in your brain. And how do smarter thoughts come in your brain? You don't wait till they come in there. You have to study. You have to listen to podcasts. You have to listen to audiobooks. You have to read articles. You have to study. You have to sort your things in your brain. And this is really important. To bring things in your brain and educate yourself. And as an educator, it's also very important, the third step. The third step is then, okay, you stay true to yourself, you really get more and more information in your head, but then the third step is learning how to put it in a way that makes sense, to make your information, your education that you got into yourself in a great way, in a valuable piece out there. If you're now, let's say, a TikToker, put it out there in like a 30-second format that makes sense and orange pills people. If you're a book author, make it in a great book that really brings home the thing. If you're a podcaster, put it in a podcast. Whatever way of educating you have to bring it in a perfect terms, perfect analogies, perfect speaking skills, the things that is in your brain. I met so many people that know so much about Bitcoin and are so clever, but they never learned how to get their knowledge in a great way out to the world. And that's why they are not good educators. They are probably they're smarter than most educators, but they cannot get it out of their brain in a very good way so other people also understand it. So those are the three jobs, in my opinion, that an educator has to do. They have to stay true to themselves at all times. They have to educate themselves all the times. You cannot make, and that's what's bothering me a lot with the education system in general, because I feel like the teachers learn something once and then they teach it for 50 years and never relearn it, never update their thoughts. They just stay there. So as a podcast host, I invest like 1 to 3 hours every day to reading books or listening to podcasts, just to get information, new inspirations in my head. And it doesn't even have to be directly about Bitcoin. I have so many interesting thoughts when I listen to podcasts outside of Bitcoin that remind me of something Bitcoin, and then I write it in my Bitcoin book because I'm like, oh, that's so genius. So just try to broaden your space, your perspective in Bitcoin. And then the last job is, as I said, getting that down. Being good in speaking, not just in the words, but also like how you say the words, is something I'm working right now very hard on, because I don't think I'm a good speaker, but I have a lot of potential because I have the audience, I have the podcast now, and I want to improve on that, and I want to live up to that potential. So learning how to speak in a interesting and educational manner is a very important skill.
Awesome. You actually had thought it through completely. I randomly asked this question, and for the audience, Robin and I didn't arrange the questions. I just sent him the link half an hour before the interview. And yeah, it happened to be a question that you had really thought through. That was an amazing answer. And the third step that you said is something that I daily grapple with as a kind of Bitcoin educator. How do I make it in the simplest terms that not me, someone with that other background also understands it, sometimes someone with that background also understands it? And it's a challenging thing, and that's the thing that requires a lot of attention. Just out of curiosity, outside Bitcoin, what other podcasts attribute to the guy I'm following? I listen a lot to Alex Hormozi, the host of, or the monologuer of mostly of The Game, which is a podcast about entrepreneurship and marketing, sales, and content production. What are the other podcasts outside Bitcoin that you listen to?
I have a unique framework. I think I don't have a podcast that I always listen to. When I want to learn something, I try to figure out who are the 5 most important people in an industry. So, for example, if I go ahead and say, I want to learn everything about Bitcoin, I figure out who are the 5 best people for myself to learn about Bitcoin. And those people are for everyone different. Like, let's be completely clear. And this also maybe like one thing that you just said, figuring out how to form a message for everyone, it's impossible. So just form a message for one audience group, and another one can form a message for another audience group. And that's why we need as many different voices as possible to hit it from all the different angles, because one person cannot hit it from all the angles. That's for sure. So there are different people that resonate with different. For example, I'm a big Michael Saylor fan. I'm a big Seyr Moose fan, and in the beginning, even a big Anthony Pompliano fan. And I have a really good friend of mine who also is a Bitcoiner, and he hates all 3 of them. It's like really hard for me to even say that word, but like he really is like, they're just about economics, because he's really a tech guy. He likes to listen to the developers of Bitcoin, to the core devs, and really goes deep on a technical level. Which, like they 3 also cover that, but they're more on the economic side of Seyr about also economics and stuff like that. So I have that framework when I want to learn something of, let's say, oh, how can I improve my speaking skills? I go in and say, hey, YouTube, Google, ChatGPT, all the tools. How can I learn about speaking, and who are the best people to learn it from? And there's a guy who's called Ving, something like that. I don't know his name, but I then Google his name and just see like 4 podcasts that he did and listen to them. It's usually like Diary of a CEO. He has really great people on. I like a lot of different podcasts that just go in deeper. For example, for creators, there's Colin and Samir, who make great podcasts with creators. They even had Mark Zuckerberg and Mr. Beast on in one episode. That was a really interesting one, having like Zuckerberg and Mr. Beast in one episode. But it was more entertaining and not as educational. So I don't have a daily podcast that I listen to. I have more of when I want to learn. That's very important. When I want to learn, I have more like there are 5, 6 interesting people that I really enjoy, and I want to learn from them. So in Bitcoin, for example, it could be, let's say, Michael Saylor, Jack Mallers, Seyr Moose, Larry Lepar, Lynn Alden. Let's say those are our 5 people. Then I just search for different podcasts where they were on. And if they are interesting enough, they usually have a book. Like Michael Saylor does not have a book, and not about Bitcoin at least. But Larry Lepar has a book. Seyr Moose has a book. Lynn Alden has a book. They all have books usually. So if I like the podcast, then I go ahead and go deeper on the book side of things. And this is a framework on how to learn things is really interesting. Figure out who are main people in that industry. Listen to podcasts, or sometimes even have own channels. It's like Vin has his own channel and he produces these amazing videos. And Alex Amose is one of the guys that you should listen to if you want to scale a business. If you want to, if you have a business and you struggle with that, I think he's probably number one. Like, he's so good in that. It's so funny because I just listened to him before I talked to you, because I had my breakfast and I like to listen to something. And he has a new format now where he brings in business owners,
yes,
who have a business that is already making some revenue, but this business had like, I don't know, 300,000 in revenue and 100,000 in losses. So made no money. And then he talked about the concept, how to get that business up and running in a profitable way. And this is awesome content. Like, you can literally learn from someone that does that every day with acquisition.com and does it live with a person. That is like, I'm so grateful that we are in an era where we can just learn that. We can just have access to that. That is unbelievable cool. I'm so grateful to have those tools. Imagine pre-printing press, how hard it was to figure out how to build a business, and how easy it is right now. You can start a business from your couch and you only need a laptop for it. Like, that's what you need for a business right now. And this is something that really humbles me, that we live in those amazing times with Bitcoin, with the internet, with all those cool technologies, with AI. Like, my podcast would not have been possible in the same quality and quantity without AI. I'm totally honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. So you said that you have 2 hours, and I was like, yeah, I can cover all the questions I have. But out of every discussion that we have, so many other things that are that coming out, and I want to. I really like to talk all about them, about all of them. However, it's better to keep the content as concise as possible, so people can consume it easier. Though I believe that for having to kind of discover new aspects of every person, we need to sit down with them and talk in a kind of stress-free environment, which I'm aiming at nurturing on this podcast. we covered very good bases, and it was a nice coincidence that you also know Alex Hormozy and you follow his content and you know him very well. And I appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again so I can cover other things and discover new aspects from your life.
Awesome. I would love to come on a second time because I feel like we just barely got started after, 1 hour, 40 minutes.
Definitely. That's the way I feel. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who's been with us or listening to this podcast.